Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Environmental Coffee House. I am Sandy Schoelles, and this is my partner, Jennifer Hynes, and it is great to be here with everybody tonight. And it looks like you're all here. You're all coming in. Good. Hi, Jen.
Hey, Sandy. Hey, everybody. Great to see you all tonight. So we have a pretty fascinating show, and it's about two things that are pretty juxtaposed. On one side, the world is burning up, heating up. On the other side, denial is stronger than ever. So we're going to take a look at this predicament that we find ourselves in, and we've got a pretty exciting lineup for you tonight. So, our first one up is from medium.com. Climate change deniers argue that the world is cooling, how they use faulty statistics to uphold lies about the ongoing crisis.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Then we've got one up from Media Matters about Fucker Carlson.
I knew you so
Oh,
one
I'm
of us was
sorry.
going to
I
say it.
mispronounced that. That was so bad. I apologize.
Fucker Carlson is perfectly right. We're not
Tucker
monetized.
Carlson, how Tucker Carlson was a terrible and effective megaphone for climate misinformation. But even with the host gone, Fox's climate lies will continue.
Yep.
How unpredictable is that? Then we're running over to phys.org, and we've got one here: the thinking error that makes people susceptible to climate change denial. So we're going to be looking at a little bit of some stats about this. Take a look at this issue that's making us all crazy. And then we're running over to the Times of India, bad Times of India, or bad India. YouTube is accused of making money on climate change denial videos. Oh, yeah, very good India, very bad YouTube. Oh, what a big surprise. YouTube is corrupt. I am shocked. Shocked, I tell you.
She's
I never
shocked.
expected that.
Shocked.
Shocked.
Taken aback. Oh my
Shocked.
gosh. So,
And then we've got kind of a
yeah.
fun little, hey, we're not done yet.
Whoa, we're
Truckers,
not done
we're
yet.
not down yet. Hold on to your horses. Then we're going over to NPR, and we have a very cute social studies sort of involvement, interactive, beautiful thing to show you that I won't go into. I'll leave that to be a surprise. Then we're going to run over with The Guardian to fires in Siberia. At least 21 dead as wildfires rage across the Urals and Siberia. Then we're going to take a look at fires on the Earth right now. This is live from the NASA map department, and it's pretty darn fascinating. I'm sure you'll find it amazing. Then, kind of a sad article from the Narwhal in Canada. We are a skeleton crew out here. UCP cuts UCP cuts led to disastrous Alberta wildfire situation. So, ooh, ouch,
Ooh, ouch.
sad.
Ooh, ouch.
And then going over this, I found so fascinating. We're going to end up with arstechnica.com. Wildfire smoke from Australia, right? Remember when Australia was on fire? Big, big, big time, fueled a 3-year super La Nina. So, this extraordinarily long not La Nina that's gone on for 3 years, which
Yep.
is unheard of. And we're
Yep.
coming out of it full force, I might add. This is a little drill down about why did that happen? How did the fires in Australia affect this La Nina that we've just lived through? I think you'll find it absolutely fascinating. And with that, Sandy,
I have a
shall we?
surprise.
Oh, you do.
Oh, yes. We have a gal named Lorna Raey who follows us, and she is a singer and a musician, and she plays all her own music. And she sent me the most beautiful track to which
Wow.
I put the video, the graphics to. We're going to play that at the end. So you all have to wait because
Mm.
it's her and I was so pleased and so happy that Lorna wrote and sent it to me. I mean, I was blown away. So you guys will like her and this. She's in the UK, so she's not with us live because she's sleeping. So I'll do a real quick hi but the truth and Wombat City and hi CJ and Scott Andrews and thank you Kim as always for being our wonderful moderator. Hi Matt Hunter my darling and Poppy Davis Gazer singing way. I always want to go singing way, but I don't sing like she does, like Lorna Raey. And Gary, I said hello Gary. All right, so I think okay, Ryan, I don't want to miss you. I think I've said hi to, whoa, hi, Jackie Wilfinal and everybody. M9078JK3. So, Trulia, all right, I think I've done it. Tom Hall, it's good. We're going to get started. We are going to get
Okay.
started. And
Yes, ma'am.
here we go. Jennifer is going to do the first one.
Okie doke, guys. So we're running over to medium.com. Climate change deniers argue that the world is cooling, how they use faulty statistics to uphold lies about the ongoing crisis. I recently saw a post on Twitter called The Staircase of Denial. The basic premise is that you constantly see claims that the world has been cooling over the past 8 years or for a period of 10 years when it was supposed to be warming. Typically, these strings of cooling are chosen very carefully to start with a hot year and end on a cooler year. If you draw a sequence of such trends over several decades, you will see what looks like a staircase. The overall trend is very clear: up, up, and up some more. This is just one way to lie with statistics, which brings to mind the three types of lies according to Mark Twain: lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Oh
Skeptical
my
Science
God.
put together a similar graphic, which you can find here. This particular crime against truth is called cherry picking because climate deniers are picking the years to look at instead of the overall trend. Each year, different factors like El Nino and La Nina determine the global average temperature. You find patterns of stability or even cooling within the overall upward trend. If you look further back to the 19th century, however, you find that the trend was stable. The temperature was not rising decade in and out. So, our first graphic tonight, the global average temperature change,
I don't think, no, it doesn't go bigger. Okay.
and we're starting at the year zero, right? So the year zero, 2000 years. So over a 2000 year period, if you look at it, you can see it was actually cooling. And to be honest, we were sort of entering a little ice age until da 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 the industrial revolution. And in particular, if you take a look right around the year 1800, if you can see that,
It opened the
you will
door.
you will see. And this little ice age that they've got going here, I believe that that was caused by a giant volcano, if I'm not mistaken, that blue bit. But what we really want to pay attention to is what happened when we started burning coal. And if you look at the year 1800, it has gone up on a rocket scale pace, ever accelerating into the stratosphere.
To the stratosphere.
This is a recipe for disaster, and it can only have one result. So let's continue. We know that human beings are causing this warming because we have very good models for average temperatures based on the level of CO2 in the atmosphere. We can measure that and see it is rising every year. We also know how much of that comes from burning fossil fuels. It's pretty simple to extrapolate from that what our portion of guilt is. It turns out to be all of the rise. In other words, the natural causes cannot explain any any of the increase. So, that brings another question. Is it really so bad? I saw a video of Jordan Peterson asking this question. Perhaps all the extra CO2 will make the planet greener by feeding the green plants more. Perhaps it will make less fertile areas more fertile. It's very wishful thinking.
Oh God. Can we do something really quick, Jennifer?
Yeah.
This is for Jordan Peterson. An early one. We might have more
Yeah.
than one tonight.
Oh, yeah, definitely. He might, yeah, he might get a couple. He's a bad boy. Not good. Stupid or
Oh,
bad? Not sure. Maybe stupid and bad.
yeah.
This is this as if I commented on a trend in psychology. What if increasing isolation among teens is a good thing? Maybe they will contemplate their lives more, develop interesting hobbies, and stay away from bad influences. Would anyone take me seriously? I wouldn't. Peterson has baited climate scientists before suggesting on Joe Rogan's show where he has no chance of being contradicted, that climate models aren't able to model climate change accurately because they don't contain everything. That is, in the words
Whoa. What happened? Oops. Sorry.
that is, in the words of Wolfgang Pauli, not even wrong. Now, truthfully, we do have to address why global warming is bad. And much of it has to do with how fast it is happening rather than the fact that it is happening. A slow warming trend over 10,000 to 100,000 years, we would just adapt to. But the Earth right now is warming faster than it has ever warmed in the past. And take
Mm-hmm.
that on board. We are talking about the history of the Earth. We are talking about this little planet that is 4.5 billion years old, they think. And in that 4.5 billion years since the formation of this planet, never in the history of this planet has it ever warmed as fast as it is at this very moment. Wow.
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 Just good to think about it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's continue. Over the Earth's history, average temperature has been far from fixed. It has experienced wild swings far below and above the current mean, but these happened over long periods. Over the Phanerozoic era, the last half billion years, the global temperature has often been very, very hot. In fact, 500 million years ago, prior to land based animals absorbing atmospheric CO2, the Earth was blistering at a global average of over 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius on average. So that's like very hot. The current average temperature is about 57 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. 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 Okay, so
Wow.
Here's the estimated Here's the
What?
estimated global temperature over the last 500 million years. So we're looking at the last 500 million years. You know what that means. It means it includes the Permian mass extinction 250 million years ago as well. So this is amazing. And here we are today. We're still sitting at kind of a coolish temperature for what the Earth has been in the past. But the problemo is the gradient. It's all about the gradient and the steepness of the gradient. And in this case, the
Mhm.
jump is instantaneous
Wow.
from a bigger time sequence perspective, detail.
Yeah.
Once land plants evolved, the temperature dropped, but it didn't stay low. Because of volcanic activity, the motion of the continents, and oscillations in the Earth's tilt, it has dropped and climbed many times. In the last 100 million years, it has been very hot twice. Once about 92 million years ago, and once again about 55 million years ago. During those periods, there were no polar ice caps, and palm trees grew north of the Arctic Circle while crocodiles plied Arctic rivers. Those warm periods were caused by release of carbon dioxide, but we don't know exactly where it came from. Perhaps the oceans. All these climates occurred before human beings existed and human civilization developed just after one of the colder periods in our planet's history. It wasn't the coldest. The coldest period was actually around 650 million years ago, when many scientists hypothesized that the entire Earth's surface was frozen over in a snowball Earth period. At this time, the Earth would have had temperatures in the negative 50 degrees C region, as cold as modern Antarctica at the equator. Nevertheless, for the period of time when multicellular life has filled the Earth, we are in one of the colder periods. It is clear human beings, at least individually, could probably survive in a much hotter Earth, since it had been much hotter in the past, and human beings have adapted to living in hot places.
Mhm.
We aren't talking about Venusian temperatures that can melt lead. The problem isn't that. It's whether human civilization can survive a rapid warming scenario. Ironically, the Earth may have some self correcting mechanisms that bring the climate back in line when it drifts too far one way or the other. One of these might be destroying human civilization so it can no longer
Lovely.
produce greenhouse gases from fossil fuel burning. Jokes aside, the current warming trend is not good for fertility. Instead, it will likely lead to increased desertification, loss of fresh water from snowpack, and the inundation of coastal cities and farms by the sea as the ice caps melt. In addition, we will see the acceleration of the current mass extinction taking place, with thousands of species dying out because of the warming of their habitats as well as the encroachment of human settlement. One of the worst effects comes from the heat itself, as we saw in the heat dome incident of the Pacific Northwest of the United States. Unusual heat phenomena can occur that are deadly to anyone without access to cooling. The poor and homeless are impacted especially. In fact, there is a measure called the wet bulb
Oh, yep.
temperature that is essentially what the temperature would be if the water were added to the air until it reached 100% humidity. When this temperature gets above 95 degrees Fahrenheit, 35 degrees Celsius, human beings can't live for more than a couple of hours. Right now, there is no place on Earth where the wet bulb temperature reaches that hot for any sustained period of time. But if it were, and it were populated in that area, it could cause millions of deaths.
Oh,
Even wet bulb temperature above 80 can cause significant deaths in places that aren't prepared for it, such as Europe. And people die from this, so do plants and animals. Indeed, livestock will die in the millions, as well as a powerful heat wave hits, and this has already happened, meaning the food supply will be impacted. All of this may seem survivable if you are a typical middle class inhabitant of an industrialized nation. But for the most vulnerable populations on earth, it will be devastating.
Mm.
It will not make their crops grow better. The lack of water and extreme heat will cause them to fail. It will not make marginal land in the far north more inhabitable, but rather it will bring disastrous heat waves to people, plants, and animals that are unprepared for them. That is why the staircase of denial eventually becomes a staircase to hell.
Yeah, not heaven. No.
We're not done yet. There is no way we can go back to a
Ah.
pre industrial way of life with the number of people on this planet, and the climate is already changing. Stopping climate change from getting any worse requires we change our sources of energy. Probably the biggest need right now is for industrialized nations to deactivate their fossil fuel burning power plants. While electric cars and home solar sound nice, they aren't an easily scaled, sustainable solution. Unfortunately, some nations, such as Germany, have chosen to scale up fossil fuel burning because of the long debunked fears of nuclear power. Given the slow growth and lack of reliability of renewables, nuclear is an important baseline, and so we should be building more plants, not replacing them. Wow.
I don't know about that one.
Okay. Interesting. That threw me.
But
Sorry, guys.
That's James Hansen's,
Yeah.
you
We should
know.
also be investing in proven technologies to burn spent nuclear fuel. Agreed, because that is a huge problem, of course. Look at Fukushima, which will reduce the need to store it. Scaling upward renewables is important too, but we don't have time to eschew fission or indulge fantasies about nuclear
Mm.
fusion. This will not help reduce carbon emissions, but drive battery powered devices, especially cars, to reduce their carbon emissions as well, and allow factories to produce goods without emissions as well. This will have a snowballing effect on the carbon footprint of the entire economy.
Mm.
Ultimately, the doomsday scenarios that some alarmists predict will likely not come to pass. Rather, we will see a world that is vastly different than the one our ancestors experienced, one that is far less habitable to human life as we have known it. Because of the rapid increase of carbon emissions and the fact that even after emissions are reduced, we expect to see additional warming, we will have to adapt even more rapidly with a level of mobilization unseen since perhaps World War II. As the ecological regions continue to collapse, it will become increasingly important to protect what is left. But it isn't clear yet whether that will be possible without a major shift in economic priorities. It is
Yeah.
no wonder that post apocalyptic science fiction is so popular right now. The zombie apocalypse is just a stand in for the devastation that we know is happening. Most people are just trying to get by while the rich hoard what is needed to truly save the world and waste it on self serving wealth building. That will have to stop as well. It's pointless at this point to say that time is running out.
Mm.
Time has run out. We are in damage control now.
Now, that was pretty good. The writer, whoa, there's 823 comments. Okay, I was thinking there was 809 comments. This is Tim Anderson. He's a PhD, and he writes lots of things. So don't miss Tim Anderson. That was pretty good. So
yeah, he's published in
yeah.
the Infinite Universe, and it says this is a periodical dedicated to exploring the philosophy and science of time, space, and matter. Whoa, follow that. Yes, ma'am.
How to live in an absurd. Oh, that was somebody else. Okay. So what I want to do now is play for you guys a little thing I put together before I move on. And it kind of mixes and melds both stories tonight. So we are going to watch this. Everybody sit back, enjoy it, and I can stand up and stretch early already. I have to stretch early. Sit back, enjoy, and here we go. Here we go.
Reality check. To treat your facts with imagination is one thing, but to imagine your facts is another. John Burroughs. Let us imagine a scenario. This scientific consensus on this idea is accepted by 95 to 99% of all the scientists who work in the relevant fields. This scientific topic threatens the viewpoints of certain groups in the United States, so it is strongly opposed by them and those they influence. Their anti-scientific viewpoint is extensively promoted by websites and publications of right-wing fundamentalist institutes such as the Discovery Institute in Seattle and is often plugged by Fox News. Opponents of this consensus cannot find legitimate scientists with expertise in the field who oppose the accepted science, so they beat the bushes for so-called scientists, none of whom have relevant training or research credentials, to compose a phony list of scientists who disagree on the topic.
The real threat to human civilization is not global warming. It never was global warming. The real threat to people is global cooling, otherwise known as winter.
Deniers of the scientific consensus resort to taking quotations out of context to make legitimate scientists sound as though they question the consensus. Deniers of the scientific consensus often look for small disagreements among scholars within the field to argue that not everyone in the field supports their major conclusions.
Climate Change Reconsidered, and this is on climatechangereconsidered.org. There are thousands of references here which talk about the fact that there is no foundation to the climate scare. It's all based on models that don't work.
Deniers often nitpick small errors on the part of individuals to argue that the entire field is unsound. Deniers of the scientific consensus often focus on small examples or side issues that do not seem to support the consensus to argue that the consensus is false. Deniers of the scientific consensus spend most of their energies disputing the scientific evidence rather than doing original research themselves. By loudly proclaiming their alternate theories and getting their paid hacks to question the scientific consensus in the media, they manage to make the American public confused and doubtful, so only half of U.S. citizens accept what 99% of legitimate scientists consider to be true. By contrast, most modern industrialized nations, Canada, nearly all European countries, China, Japan, Singapore, and many others, have no problems with the scientific consensus and treat it as a matter of fact in both their education and in their economic and political decisions. The deniers are part of the right-wing Fox News echo chamber and repeat the same lies and discredited arguments to themselves over and over again. Powerful Republican politicians have used the controversy over this issue to force changes in the teaching of this topic in schools. Most people reading through that list would immediately assume that it describes the creationists and their attempts to target the overwhelming scientific consensus on evolution. Indeed, the list could describe creationists or evolution deniers, but it also describes the actions of the climate deniers, who deny global warming is real and caused by humans as well. Indeed, the membership lists of creationists and climate change deniers have a great deal of overlap, and both causes are promoted equally by right-wing political candidates, news media, especially Fox News, and religious organizations such as the Discovery Institute. Even more revealing is how these denier movements get the money to make such a fuss. As Deep Throat said in All the President's Men, follow the money. Both kinds of denialism are heavily funded by wealthy entities with vested interests that further their causes while characterizing them as populist grassroots movements in opposition to unpopular scientific topics. The creationists are funded not only by many rich fundamentalist churches, but also by powerful right-wing businessmen or institutes, such as Howard Amundsen Jr., the Coors family, the McClellan Institute, and the Stewardship Foundation. The climate deniers receive massive funding and support from the oil, coal, and other energy industries, especially ExxonMobil and Koch industries, that are threatened by the possibility of our reduced dependence on oil and coal. Let us make an important distinction here. These deniers are not just skeptics about climate change or any other scientific idea that they do not like. A skeptic is someone who does not believe things just because someone proclaims them, but tests them against evidence. Sooner or later, if the evidence is solid, then the skeptic must acknowledge that the claim is real. A denier, by contrast, is ideologically committed to attacking an opposing viewpoint, and no amount of evidence will change their minds.
And I will have the link to that guy's book. Actually, that I believe was 10 years old. But the graphics, the videos was everything that's happening now in fires in Siberia. And I took that and put music with it. You know, I always like to do things like that for you. So, all right. Well, it is my turn to take on how Tucker Carlson was a terrible and effective megaphone for climate misinformation. So here we go on this one. All right. So prior to his departure, did you ever notice he always had that? Well, I'm not going to do it. Prior to his departure from Fox News on April 24th, Tucker Carlson was one of the network's most prolific purveyors of climate change misinformation. Carlson elevated fringe ideas and conspiracy theories from relative obscurity on the internet to become drum beats for right-wing media. He also dishonestly spun major news events and weaponized his viewers' most deep-seated prejudices about race and power to push climate denial. His absence will be a blow to the forces aiming to mock environmental justice, derail climate action, and protect polluting industries and their allies in Washington. But the end of Tucker Carlson's primetime news show is far from the end of climate change denial on Fox News. His project is sure to be carried on by other Fox personalities who will continue the network's awful history of climate change, like we saw with, what's her name? I don't even want to say her name. Carlson's propelled internet misinformation and obscure conspiracy theories into right-wing media narratives against climate action. One thing that set Carlson apart at Fox was his ability to seemingly jumpstart a tidal wave of misinformation. He and his producers seemingly scoured the internet so that he could amplify right-wing grievances as well as any obscure video or article that could be easily decontextualized to sound absurd or inflammatory. He knew his audience, and he knew exactly how to push their buttons. Carlson's response to the deadly Texas winter storm that killed hundreds of people in February 2021 triggered a deluge of misinformation from Fox News. He was the first Fox News host to blame the widespread power outages on wind energy. The reality was that Texas is still largely relies on natural gas for power, and this infrastructure was not ready for the extreme cold. Over the last few years, Carlson helped create a misinformation crisis around climate action and even told his audience that climate activists were going to try to shrink children and force everyone to eat bugs when there is no evidence that those things are actually happening. Fittingly, one of the very last things Carlson did in his final Fox segment was to promote Let Them Eat Bugs. Notably, he said that chocolate-covered cricket was delicious. During Carlson's Fox Nation original Let Them Eat Bugs, right-wing comedian Jay Dyer said, quote, "Is there a group of unelected bureaucratic elites that are involved in a global campaign to minimize meat consumption and convince people not to eat meat and eat bugs to save the world from climate change? I think we can answer in the affirmative, absolutely." Fox Nation Let Them Eat Bugs, which actually makes some sense to me. In the same program, Carlson said, "These people we spoke to in the edible insect industry didn't seem to like extremists. In fact, to a person, they come off as decent and well-meaning, but they are not the ones setting the bigger agenda." And I'm not going to play it. Oh. In an unhinged February 2023 monologue claiming climate change is a fake religion, being used to make people suffer, atone for their climate sins, Carlson said. What else are you allowed to have in the name of the climate crisis? Well, how about no more heat or air conditioning or electricity or cars or wearing leather or eating meat or having children? All are sins against the climate. So for you, it is insects, tap water, and celibacy. That's a tough religion. Even John the Baptist got to eat honey and locusts. No honey for you. We're beyond self-denial. In June 2021, the Fox host also created panic around an obscure video of New York University bioethicist at a conference talking speculatively about using genetic engineering to lower our carbon footprint. Carlson made it sound as though this was already being carried out as potentially world-altering experiments being funded by the secretive daisy chain of government health agencies and powerful NGOs, unquote. He then compared the idea to the Holocaust. What balls he has, saying that bioethicists have short memories, apparently. And in any case, climate change is a pressing emergency. He later mockingly added, all we need to do is experiment on human children, and we can solve climate change. Promoting a false claim, two relatively unknown Twitter accounts had popularized in the days after the Texas storm. Carlson said that the state's inability to keep the lights on was due to its reckless reliance on windmills. He's such a jerk. Misinformation about frozen windmills was just about the tip of the iceberg for Carlson's attacks on clean energy and climate action. Often portraying climate policies as a means to control the population or create a permanent caste system, Carlson regularly injected fear-mongering about the clean energy transition into his segments. At the core of his argument was the fossil fuel industry talking point, claiming that renewable energy technology was insufficient and that transitioning away from fossil fuels would weaken the U.S. and put Americans under the complete and total control of people who wish us ill. In October 2021, Carlson even used his newest venture, Tucker Carlson Originals, on Fox Nation to promote wind energy misinformation in the documentary Blown Away: People versus Wind Power. Carlson was among those on Fox News pushing false claim that offshore wind development was responsible for whale deaths. In January, he pushed his claim multiple times, punctuating his misinformation with chyrons. Green New Deal wind farms are killing off whales, and graphics. The Biden whale extinction. I can't even do his voice.
Good.
Carlson suggested that China is working through a climate organization to put ban on gas stoves. Why would China push fake science like that? Maybe because the United States has some of the biggest natural gas reserves in the world. And if we can be convinced not to use those gas reserves, we will be weak and they will be strong. Okay. Carlson suggested mass disobedience in the face of tyranny in response to the potential regulation of gas stoves. In response to the United Nations COP27 climate negotiation in November 2022, Carlson fearmongered about the implementation of green energy policies, stating fossil fuels are the reason we have civilization. Take them away and countries collapse, which actually might have some merit, but we won't go into that right now. In an over 13-minute May 22 monologue, Carlson suggested that renewable energy was making energy more costly while enriching Democrats. Invest trillions of dollars of other people's money in batteries and wind farms and electric school buses. That way, Democratic politicians get fingertip control over the entire U.S. economy and all of their friends get rich. He also blamed Senator Elizabeth Warren for high gas prices, claiming that she has worked hard to prevent the United States from producing more gasoline. And that is the main reason why it's so expensive. Oh, God.
Oh.
Carlson continued to push. Jennifer, he's just a turd. He to push. What?
Can we not do the whole article on Tucker Carlson? I can't stand him. And we've got so many other good things, and it's hugely long.
Well,
it's like, how about you go a little bit longer?
I'm going to just tell you who he platformed. How's that?
Okay.
He platformed Michael Schellenberger 21 times. Climate change denier Mark Morano 14 times, meteorologist Joe Bastardi 8 times, fossil fuel shill Bjorn Lomborg 4 times. These guests push the Great Reset conspiracy theory, cherry-pick statistics to downplay the impacts of extreme weather, or suggested climate activism is a cult or a new religion. So, we know about these guys. We really do, because I've talked about them, and I don't like Bjorn Lomborg. He's just a liar. So in the last several years, he had started to merge his climate denial and defense of fossil fuel with overt racism and white grievance. And that's what he did. Well, I watched, and
he's a piece of shit.
Well, I had my cousins that watched, and at one time, my cousin asked my mother, "Is she a tree hugger?" That's literally what she did.
He really spoke to and influenced and molded and enraged and engaged and misinformed an entire segment of the population, and there's no reasoning with it. It is the way it is. It's amazing to me. It's such a strange predicament to have all these people who just believe all this stuff.
Well,
right?
It is. And they say that people like Laura Ingraham will just continue it. So we'll see what happens. There's Jesse Waters, and he platformed a fossil fuel industry funded envoy as an ocean advocate to argue that offshore wind farms are killing whales, which I don't have the data on that. I don't have the information on that. So maybe we'll have to look into that, but I don't think that's happening. And she's just the Ingram. They're just awful. Greg Gutfeld, awful, awful, awful. So somebody said I should give him a double flush.
Oh yeah, totally. Totally.
I could do it. Let's see if I can actually do the There you go. There you go. Yeah, that was a big one. All right. So
can I just read that last little paragraph? Were you going to?
Go ahead.
About this. It's uncertain who will be placed in Carlson's 8 p.m. slot, but whatever the outcome, one thing is that Fox will continue to supplement its climate coverage with racism, bigotry, misogyny, and brain-frying idiocy.
Yes.
And That is like, holy shit. What a predicament is
What a
that?
predicament. Well, we're in a predicament.
What a
We are in a
predicament is that?
predicament. How you guys doing out there? Poppy liked the flush. That
Yeah.
was a good flush. All right, good. All right. Let's move on because
Ah,
Jennifer's going to take this next she's going to take the next article, which is again about this denial, which I know a lot of people don't want us to use the word denial, but this is May 2nd, 2023, and it's phys.org or phys.org. So take it away,
it's
Jen.
so interesting, right? It's all about human thinking and all
Yeah,
the
this is a
stuff
good
that we
one.
do, right?
It's a
So
good
this
one.
is from, as Sandy said, it's from phys.org, just out, guys. The thinking error that makes people susceptible to climate change denial. And here, the first thing, we're not going to go at great length into this, but you can see both of these graphs are an uh, kind of an example of the exponential function in a way. You can see there's a bend in them. One is the Apple stock price, the other one is global temperature anomaly. But in any case, that is the look of an exponential graph. Long term trend of major increase. So here we go, guys. Long spells often bring climate change deniers out in force on social media with
What
hashtags
happened to it?
like
Mm.
climate hoax and climate scam. Former President Donald Trump often chimes in, repeatedly claiming that each cold snap disproves the existence of global warming. From a scientific standpoint, these claims of disproof are absurd. Fluctuations in the weather don't refute
God.
long term trends in the climate. Yet, many people believe these claims, and the political result has been reduced willingness to take action to mitigate climate change. Why are so many people susceptible to this type of disinformation? My field, psychology, can help explain and help people avoid being misled. So, first section, the allure of black and white thinking. Close examination of the arguments made by climate change deniers reveals the same mistake made over and over again. That mistake is the cognitive error known as black and white thinking,
Mm.
also called dichotomous or not or all or none thinking.
Oh, like
As I
my
explained
ex-husband.
As I explain in my
Oh.
book, Finding Goldilocks, black and white thinking is a source of dysfunction in mental health, relationships, and politics. People are often susceptible to it because, in many areas of life, dichotomous thinking does sometimes something helpful. It simplifies the world. Binaries are easy to handle because there are only two possibilities to consider. When people face a spectrum of possibilities and nuance, they have to exert more mental effort. But when that spectrum is polarized into pairs of opposites, choices are clear and dramatic. This mental labor saving device is practical in many everyday situations, but it is a poor tool for understanding complicated realities, and climate is complicated. Sometimes people divide the spectrum in asymmetric ways, with one side much larger than the others. For example, perfectionists often categorize their work as either perfect or unsatisfactory, so even good and very good outcomes are lumped together with the poor
Ah.
ones in the unsatisfactory category. In dichotomous thinking like this, a single exception can tip a person's point of view to one side. It is like a pass fail grading system in which 100% earns a pass and everything else gets an F. When a grading system is like this. It's not surprising that opponents of climate action have found ways to reject global warming research despite the overwhelming evidence. Here is how they do it: the all or nothing problem. Climate change deniers simplify the spectrum of possible scientific consensus into two categories: 100% agreement or no consensus at all. If it's not one, it's the other. In a 2021 review of thousands of climate science papers and conference proceedings, concluded that over 99% of the studies have found that the burning of fossil fuels warms the planet. It's not good enough for some skeptics. If they find one contrarian scientist somewhere, they categorize the idea of human caused global warming as controversial and conclude that there is no basis for action. Powerful economic interests are at work here. The fossil fuel industry has funded disinformation campaigns for years to create this kind of doubt about climate change, despite knowing that their products cause it and the consequences. Members of the Congress have used that disinformation to block or weaken federal policies that could slow climate change, expecting a straight line in a variable world. In another example of black and white thinking, deniers argue that if global temperatures are not increasing at a perfectly consistent rate, there is no such thing as global warming. However, complex variables never change in a uniform way. They wiggle up and down in the short term, even when exhibiting long-term trends. Most business data, such as revenues, profits, and stock prices, do this too, with short-term fluctuations contained in long-term trends. Mistaking a cold snap for disproof of climate change is like mistaking a bad month for Apple stock for proof that Apple isn't a good long-term investment. This error results from homing in on a tiny slice of the graph and ignoring the rest. So interesting. Human and natural influences on global temperature. Black is the observed human influences in global temperature. And it is not volcanic, it is not solar, it is not orbital. Those are all the natural drivers. It actually is the human influences. So that's a graph and shows how that goes up and down. Failing to examine the gray area. Climate change deniers also mistakenly cite correlations below 100% as evidence against human-caused global warming. They triumphantly point out that sunspots and volcanic eruptions also affect climate, even though evidence shows both have very little influence on long-term temperature rise in comparison to greenhouse gas emissions. In essence, deniers argue that if fossil fuel burning is not all important, it's unimportant. They miss the gray area in between. Greenhouse gases are indeed just one factor warming the planet, but they are the most important one and the factors the humans can influence. Next section, the climate has always been changing, but not like this.
Oh, I hate when anybody says
I
that.
hate it.
My
I hate
first
it.
ex-husband said that to me, and I
Oh,
had to walk.
hate it.
I was like, I had to take a walk. I had to take a walk.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself. As increases in global temperatures have become obvious, some climate change skeptics have switched from denying them to reframing them. Their oft repeated line, quote, "The climate has always been changing," typically delivered with an air of patient wisdom, is based on a striking lack of knowledge about the
Totally.
evidence from climate
Totally.
research.
They totally are
It's so
clueless fucking
embarrassing.
morons.
Sorry, you're showing your moronicism. Your moronicism is showing. Pull up your pants. Their reasoning is based on an invalid binary. Either the climate is changing or it's not. And since it's always been changing, there's nothing new here and no cause for
Oh, nothing to
concern.
see
You
here.
fucking asshole. You twat. However, the current warming is on par with nothing humans have ever seen. Let's just read that one more time.
Go for it.
However, the current warming is on par with nothing humans have ever seen. And intense warming events in the distant past were planet-wide disasters that caused massive extinctions, something we do not want to repeat. As humanity faces the challenges of global warming, we need to use all our cognitive resources. In other words, don't be a fucking dumbass. Recognizing the thinking error at the root of climate change denial could disarm objections to climate research and make science the basis of our efforts to preserve a hospitable environment for our future. And that is the end of that.
Okay. Definitely. Well, it was interesting though. It really was. It was a good one, and it was perfect. You did a perfect job on it. All right. Well, now we're gonna go to a little bit of humor. The Times of India is saying that YouTube. I mean, heavens, YouTube accused of making money on climate change denial videos. Google in October 2021 updated its ads and monetization policies on climate change with an aim to better protect users from unreliable claims. It also said that the company will not sell ads on content that refers to climate change as a hoax or a scam. But a new report has claimed that Google is still making money by advertising alongside such videos. The Climate Action Against Disinformation CAD said in its report that researchers identified 200 YouTube videos containing climate misinformation and disinformation with 73.8 million views in total as of April 17th, 2023. The videos have all featured ads and contained either outright denial of climate science that violates YouTube's existing policies or other forms of climate disinformation, the report highlighted. I hope we don't get a strike for reading this right. Google's policy on climate change. Google updated its monetization for policy for Google advertisers, publishers, and YouTube creators that will prohibit ads for and monetization of content that contradicts well-established scientific consensus around the existence and causes of climate change. The company said that the content will include videos that refer to climate change as a hoax or a scam, claims to deny that long-term trends show the global climate is warming, and claims denying the greenhouse gas emissions or human activity contribute to climate change. So about 100 videos carried ads. The report said that 100 videos breached Google's policy, according to which ads are not permitted on videos, while contradicting authoritative scientific consensus on the existence of and the cause behind climate change. These 100 videos reportedly carried ads with videos amassing a total of 18.8 million views. The ads were for brands including Costco, Politico, and Tommy Hilfiger. YouTube profiting from climate denial videos. The report said that YouTube is still profiting from climate denial videos with millions of views. The cat also claimed to have found an additional 100 videos that fell outside its narrow definition but meet the group's definition of climate misinformation and disinformation. So YouTube is still running ads on climate denial videos, racking up millions of views despite their promise to stop monetizing them. And that was that report. And we are not monetized. I don't know if you guys see ads on our channel, but we are not monetized. And so I don't know if, the views we get, who knows? Who knows? But now we are going to move over. And we are going to move over to a little fire stuff. And Jennifer's going to take this one, and she's going to start with this. Well, we're both going to do this one, and we're going to do it quick because we have quite a bit more content. Jet, we'll take it away.
Yeah. All right. More than 25 million acres have burned in the western U.S. since 2018. Some fires have been so extreme they're impossible to contain. Weather has been the deciding factor in many of those fires. When hot, arid conditions settle on the western U.S., the fire danger skyrockets. Far to the north, the season of ice is changing. The Arctic Ocean is normally covered in a vast frozen blanket for most of the year. But sea ice is shrinking. It's breaking up earlier in the spring and forming later in the fall. As the climate gets hotter, the Arctic is spending more days as open ocean. These extreme of fire and ice are more than 3,000 miles apart. But now, connections are emerging. Fire and ice. The planet's ice is fundamentally tethered to weather patterns that stretch across the globe. Scientists are finding that as the climate changes, that connection could be helpful fuel disasters.
Wow. Ooh.
It's a warm afternoon in early July in the village of Kotzebue, Alaska, 33 miles above the Arctic Circle. Open water is becoming an increasingly common sight this time of year. In decades past, ice would still be floating by the shoreline, left over from the long winter months when it covers the ocean, stretching across the horizon. The community is feeling the fallout of a rapidly warming climate. The changes on their doorstep are a bellwether for larger impacts to come. Ice is a way of life for the Inupiat, who have lived here for thousands of years. There are no roads in or out of town. Sea ice is a vital pathway for travel to nearby communities and for finding and gathering food. Most residents depend on subsistence hunting for their traditional food, including fish, seals, and caribou, as has been done for generations. Bearded seals, or ergrut, are an important food source. In the spring, the seals arrive as the ice starts to break apart and stay only a short time until the ice disappears. That season is getting even shorter now. In some years, it has become too brief for hunting to be successful. Traveling across thinning ice is more precarious. To study this shift, village elders worked with scientists at Columbia University and the University of Alaska, Fairbanks, to continue traditional Indigenous knowledge with scientific measurements. They found that the sea ice is breaking up 3 weeks earlier now on average than it did in 2003. Village elders like Cyrus Harris says the signs are undeniable. Our colder temperatures throughout the winter are no longer colder temperatures, he says. Earlier spring thaws, it's obvious. Later fall freeze up, it's obvious. It's going to be a big challenge for the younger generation. It's not a good sight for me to be envisioning, Harris says. And what happens in the Arctic radiates far beyond its borders. The Arctic only works when it's cold, and it's the air conditioner for the planet. So, as the Arctic breaks down, the climate connections of the whole planet break down. And this was said by Alex Whiting, an environmental director for the native village of Kosciuszko. The Arctic is heating up more than twice as fast as the rest of the planet. This animation shows the amount of ice the Arctic Ocean at the end of the summer from 1979 to 2022. It has been shrinking by 13% each decade. Bright white ice is really good at reflecting sunlight, but with less ice cover, that sunlight is hitting the ocean, heating up the water. That hotter water releases its heat into the atmosphere, and the warm air rises. It creates a spinning mass of air known as low pressure system. It's so strong it can influence the polar jet stream and the powerful band of winds that steer the weather patterns across the U.S. The low pressure system pushes the jet stream off its usual course, causing it to dip. As a result, a zone of hot, dry air, known as a high pressure system, can be strengthened. Research shows that as Arctic sea ice declines, this phenomena could be more common in the fall. It's a season when, in the western U.S., arid weather can have disastrous consequences. Late September 2020, firefighting Mark Marcius and his crew were called to a wildfire in a rural part of Napa County, California. They were the first on the scene and knew immediately the situation was dire. Hot, arid temperature was expected for days due to a high pressure system over California. The critically dry air sapped the vegetation of its moisture, priming it to burn. The fire exploded, spreading hundreds of acres in the first day. Macias said, and his team worked more than 50 hours straight, evacuating residents from neighborhoods with narrow, winding roads. Fire of this magnitude, the size, how fast it moves, you can't get in front of it. You try to do a lot, but it feels like you can't win. And this is Mark Macias in the Santa Helena Fire Department. More than 1,500 homes and buildings were lost in the glass fire. It's just one of many Western wildfires in recent years where extreme weather has driven explosive fire behavior. Scientists are working to better understand how these dangerous conditions are linked to what happens in the Arctic and the role that it plays in weather shifts worldwide. The hope is that Western states could get an early warning when a fire season may be particularly risky. That means closely tracking the rapidly shrinking ocean of ice, thousands of miles away. On a hotter planet changing in unexpected ways, that's what a distant That's what that's what's distant is becoming local. Sorry. What's distant is becoming local. The change in the Arctic could affect anywhere people live. If you live on the same Earth, you will feel the change. And this was said by Haoling Wang, an Earth scientist at the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. And that is
That was
that
really good.
experience. It was really
It
good.
was
It was quite an
beautiful.
experience.
And you know what, Jennifer? This is the kind of thing I would like to show people that may be, skeptical or whatever, but then they'll just say, "Oh, NPR, it's a lib turd commie, whatever bullshit they'll say,"
Well,
and
it's
that's sad
amazing.
because this
It's
is so
gorgeous.
good, and they have the wherewithal to do this kind of work. It
Right.
was really nice. Thank you for narrating it so well.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. So we're not going to read the next article, the whole thing, but we're just telling you what's going on. And what's going on is the Siberian wildfires in the Urals in Siberia. But because I want you all to stay for Lorna Raey's song that I put beautiful graphics to, and I don't want you to leave. We'll speed this up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we know that there's wildfires happening in that area, the Ural Mountains, and it's mainly elderly people that are dying. It's in the Western Siberian Tumen province,
Mm,
and
mm.
it's they have the people. They're just like they don't have enough people.
Sandy, do we have enough time to play the little video? It's just a minute.
This one here, or the one up here.
The beginning
This one.
one in the article.
This one. Yeah. Let me make sure that I have it set up. Sure. Yeah. Sure, we can. Of course, we have enough time. All right.
Shoot.
Look at that.
It's that fire NATO.
Mm.
Oh my God.
This is Russia.
Трасса на Екатеринбург, назад в Тюмень, налево в Курган.
Siberia, Kate.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's
Pretty
intense.
hairy. Pretty
Pretty hairy.
hairy. Yep. I would
Pretty
say.
hairy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that basically tells really what's going on there. And this graphic, these are the smoke plumes and of large parts of Russia and Canada, and it's not good. We even had a notification that around here we were going to be seeing the smoke from Canada.
Oh
So
wow.
it's a double whammy. So that's what's happening in Russia, and they had pretty bad forest fires in 2021. So I kind of feel like we're so screwed with these fires, and that moves us on to this,
Mm.
which is the fire maps that are right
Look at
now.
Africa. Look at that. Look at that big ball of red. That's the Democratic Republic of
Hmm.
Congo, Angola, and Zambia. That whole bunch of red, those three countries, it's like all burning.
Burning up,
What are they doing?
burning up, and we can go look at Australia. It has fires. I mean, everybody is having fires. And let's
Oh,
see, let's go to North America, and then
look
there's
at Mexico.
Mexico, South America. Wow, I didn't know Mexico was having so many fires. Why is that not in the
Wow.
news?
I don't know. You don't hear about it, do you?
No. And this looks pretty serious.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. I did not attempt to play around too much with the
The interesting thing about this map is that it's actually a satellite map, and if
mhm.
you roll into it and zoom into it, you can actually see the houses. If you roll the other way and go in and in and in, you can see it it goes in, until you can see a house. Check that out, right? You can see exactly where it is. Isn't that crazy?
This is Mexico. Look at this.
Yeah, look at that. It's
Let's go
crazy.
down and let's go up and see what can let's go up to see let's go to Canada. Let's go up because Canada has just been
Uh,
inundated with terrible, horrible, awful. Let's see.
uh-huh.
Mm. Doesn't show, but look, it's like Google Earth.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's definitely got the Google
It's a
map
pretty yeah.
component.
I'll put the link up because it's a lot of
It's interesting. It's
yeah
addictive, actually.
yeah they
It's You
are
can be really nosy with stuff like this. You can see
right.
everything.
Google Earth. Yeah,
I know.
you can. And there's fires in New York. We still have a burn ban here in New York, but I don't want to. I mean, I could probably play a little bit, but I'm not. Oh, okay. So each layer shows something different and shows clouds and shows reflection and
Wow.
shows all. I mean, you
Oh, it
really
does
can have.
everything.
Yeah, you can have a lot of fun with this. Rain. Yeah.
Wow.
So I would say if you're not look at it, streets, you can static background streets, topographic. It's insane. It's insane. So let's see. Where's Canada? Edmonton. There's the fires up in Canada. See? Oh
Mhm.
my. All right, guys. That was so the link will be in the show notes and you can play with this. And we're going to
Fascinating.
move on. We're just going to talk about this again. We're going to talk about that there what they said about the skeleton crew. Jen, do you want to go through this really quickly?
Sure, we can. We can. Um,
Whoa.
do you want me to read the narwhal?
Yeah.
Okay, we are a skeleton crew out here. UCP cuts led to disastrous Alberta wildfire situation. The Alberta wildfire firefighters place much of the blame for the current situation on the shoulders of the UCP government, which has gutted firefighter programs and failed to retain staff. May 4th, Alberta's boreal forest and prairie grasslands were bone dry, matchbox waiting to be struck. Temperatures soared in the high 20s, well above seasonal averages. The relative humidity plunged below 15%, creating what wildfire scientists call crossover conditions and the potential for extreme fire behavior. Over the next 3 days, more than 100 wildfires ignited throughout Alberta,
Mm.
including 31 wildfires categorized as out of control and forced the evacuations of nearly 30,000 people. One lookout observer in Alberta's boreal forest watched a storm system developing in the distance from their fire tower. Lookouts are the first line of defense in detecting wildfires in Alberta, responsible for reporting fires ideally the size of zero point zero 0.01 hectares or one tenth of a football field. Like others who spoke in the narwhal for this story, this individual asked not to be named or to have their gender identified, as they are not authorized to speak publicly.
Look at that.
Wow.
Mm-mm-mm.
They spotted the narrow smoke column in skies already thick with smoke from other fires, reported the wildfire over a two-way radio, and watched over the next several hours as winds gusting to 50 kilometers an hour fueled the small fire into a raging wall of flames. Holy shit. Oh
Mm-hmm.
my God.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most terrifying day of my life, they say. The wildfire burned for several hours before it was investigated and battled because firefighting crews were forced to triage on a number of fires that had started simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
In that time, they could do nothing but watch as the fire took off, unable to prevent the devastating speed of yet another out of control wildfire, many of which have threatened homes and communities this past week. Their experience was not unique. Teams asked the teams tasked with preventing and fighting wildfires across Alberta have been overwhelmingly unprepared for this year's wildfires, a direct result of the United Conservative Party, the UCP, efforts to dismantle and defund Alberta Wildfire, the
Huh.
province's wildfire
What is
prevention
that?
and firefighting response unit. Since 2019, the UCP government has gutted Albertan firefighters and response teams and their ability to efficiently respond to and manage wildfires in the
Boy, they get
province.
a flush.
Piece of shit.
Flush Alberta's politicians right down the drain. They need the water for the fires. Yeah.
Give it to them. Maybe we couldn't have prevented the start and the rate of spread, but we're running at a 50% capacity to contain these wildfires, says a firefighting crew leader who's currently working at the front lines of one of the wildfires burning out of control. We don't have enough resources, period.
Mm.
He says his crew requested air tankers and structural protection crews but received no support. Across the province, districts were scrambling to designate shoestring resources to multi fire events.
Wow.
Alberta wildfire was forced to triage, and some wildfires went unmanaged. Quote, you have to be proactive in order to be prepared, crew leaders say. And the government hasn't been proactive for the past 4 years. We all knew this was going to happen. This is not an unprecedented disaster in Alberta's recent history. For over a decade, nearly identical spring conditions have fueled catastrophic wildfires, including the Flat Top Complex, which burned over part of the Slave Lake in 2011. The Horse River wildfire, which prompted the evacuation of the city of Fort McMurray in
Yeah, remember that.
2016. I remember that too.
Mhm.
And the Chukag and McMillan wildfires, which threatened multiple communities in northern Alberta in 2019. What is unprecedented is the way the government has cut back the department tasked with dealing with exactly these sorts of disasters. The UCB government has whittled away a world class firefighting response program, says another veteran lookout observer with over a decade of experience under their belt. Alberta wildfire used to be looked to by other provinces for our exceptional wildfire program. Shortly after
Oh.
being elected to office in 2019, the UCP government shut down 26 active fire towers across Alberta, more than one
That's
fifth of
insane.
detection coverage in the province. Lookouts are responsible for a 40-kilometer radius of the forest.
Insane.
Early detection and investigation of wildfires enable firefighters to put suppression plans in place before wildfires escalate into large scale catastrophes.
Mm.
In an emailed response to questions, Leanne Nibluck, a spokesperson for Alberta Forestry, Parks and Tourism, said the government is committed to doing everything we can to fight these fires and keep Albertans and their property and homes safe, and added Alberta's 2023 budget included approximately $100 million in base funding for wildfire management and another $1.5 billion in a contingency fund for emergencies and natural disasters. But closures of fire towers has resulted in vast areas of forest and grasslands being unmonitored by lookouts. There are huge gaps in the forest, says another lookout observer with nearly 20 years' experience working on towers. Our area of responsibility has doubled. The problem isn't that people working to manage the wildfires, it's politics.
Of course.
Very,
Of course it is.
what a big surprise.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Aerial patrols to detect wildfires burning out of control are also less frequent, according to one lookout. Last week, there was dry lightning where towers are closed, and there were hardly any helicopter patrols, they said. We all knew this was going to happen. Cuts to Alberta wildfire fighting to include repel attack program pay and staff. November 2019, the UCP cut funding for the Repel Attack Program, a firefighting program in Alberta that ran for nearly 40 years, training crews to rappel from helicopters into inaccessible locations to fight fires. The decision to eliminate Alberta's wildfire repel program was made after careful consideration of the specific advantages provided by the repel crews, the type of wildfires Alberta has experienced in the past, and those we expected to experience in the future, Niblock, the government spokesman, said in an email. She added the crews were used for initial attack on less than 2% of Alberta's wildfires. In 2021, further cuts to Alberta wildfire forced managers to lay off permanent staff at the district level, including wildfire rangers and information officials who were responsible for educating and informing regional communities about the risks and threats of wildfires. To date, some regions remain without a ranger to manage wildfires, said firefighter based in the boreal forest. Wildfire rangers are now burdened with the tasks of managing multiple portfolios beyond their own. Even more alarming, in 2022, says a wildfire ranger and former firefighter with more than 15 years of cumulative experience working in Alberta, was a 10% cut in the seasons of wildfire personnel, resulting in later contractual start dates and earlier dates. These cuts have meant firefighters, radio dispatchers, lookout observers, support logistical staff, and other critical personnel are still in training when Alberta is vulnerable to experiencing the largest and most catastrophic wildfires.
Wow.
The fire hazard has increased to be earlier in the spring and later in the fall, and that is precisely when they have cut the tower seasons, says a veteran lookout observer, adding that in 20 seasons, she's never experienced a year like this one. They got away with it in previous seasons because the weather was cooler and wetter, but the conditions have changed drastically. We are a skeleton crew out there. Harold Larson worked as a wildland wildfire or firefighter and crew leader in Alberta for 14 years and has 20 years of experience working on more than 300 wildfires in his career in Alberta, British Columbia, and Australia. He recalls working on a wildfire in the vicinity of the Flat Top wildfire in May 2011, which burnt through 1/3 of the town of Slave Lake, destroying over 370 properties. The fire was considered one of the most damaging and costly wildfires in Alberta history. Larson points to Flat Top Wildfire Complex Review, a document produced by Alberta Wildfire in 2012, which recommends the government hire additional firefighters, wildfire rangers, and personnel to be prepared to manage the large scale wildfires. Those ranger positions created by Flat Top Review were cut last year, he says. He became one of the first unit crew leaders in the province following those recommendations, managing a team of 20 firefighters specializing in sustained action on large scale wildfires. But Larson left Alberta Wildfire after the 2018 season. I saw the ship was sinking, he says. Firefighter retention has been a huge issue in Alberta's availability to effectively manage wildfires, he says, particularly since the UCP government has cut back overtime pay and seasonal contracts. Firefighters in Alberta lack access to full-time, year-round employment, benefits, pensions, and even sick days. The key to staying long-term in Alberta as a firefighter is sacrifice, Larson says. Sacrificing relationships, income, benefits, and even the body.
So what do you say, Jen? You want to keep going? It's a
No.
long one. It's a long one.
It's too long, but it goes on like that.
You guys got it.
We got it.
Alberta's fucked. Okay. Now, listen. The only thing I'm going to do with this last one is all I'm going to say is wildfire smoke from Australia fueled that 3-year super La Nina. It's a new article. It's I'm going to put it in there because I really want to play the video, and we've been an hour and a half, but this is a good article. It's just a long show. So if you want to go back, I'd say you should. I'm going to go to the bottom but climate models that include wildfire emissions are part of a coupled system. It's really where we need to be going to answer questions like, are these things going to increase in the future? The paper is a great example of new work that's coming out to attribute certain aspects of climate change that have maybe been off the radar. And they're talking about smoke, traveling. See, they said here, the cloudy intertropical convergence zone was pushed northward by aerosol pollution from the 2019-20 wildfires in Australia, which can shift storm tracks and precipitation patterns around the planet. That's pretty scary stuff.
It is.
That is.
I mean, basically what they're saying is that the fallout from these wildfires in Australia that burned more than 70,000 square miles in Australia in 2019 and 2020 was so huge, so big, so widespread that it brightened a vast area of clouds above the subtropical Pacific Ocean, effectively changing the immediate length of the La Nina. And it's a fascinating article. Hope you all will dig in and read it.
Yeah. I kind of went over on the show, but we're going to show you the video from our follower that she makes beautiful music. This is what we're going to close with. It is beautiful. I'm not going to put any comments up. I'm just going to have you guys watch it. You know the drill. You know the buy me a coffee, all that good stuff. Thank you very much for everything you guys do. Jennifer, I love the show. Thank you everyone for being here. And Trev, you came late when we were talking about where you live. Trev, we share gardening stuff in our in the Discord, so it's pretty cool. Well, everybody, thank you. Jennifer, would you like to give the goodbye for this Friday?
Oh, absolutely. Guys, it's been such an interesting show, and we really took these concepts and understandings of denial and all the shit that's being released, all this fire, the hellstorm. And as the fires increase, the denial also increases. So it's so weird. It's a psychological condition, clearly. It's been a pleasure hanging out with you guys tonight, and hope you all can stay cool.
Enjoy Lorna Raey's video because it's beautiful. So here we go.
People turn away and say, let's play as Rome's burning. Why can't we agree? Don't you see which way this is turning? Could this be our finest hour if we're learning? Take my hand, say you'll stand with me. That's all I need now. That's all we need. Take my hand, say you'll stand with me. If we lose it all, let there be love. Love, let there be love. Let there be love. Let there be love.